you doing, Isaac?
Everything's good, Carlos.
You look good.
You too.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sinai Temple's program for Elul, the month before Rosh Hashanah. We're now less than 1 month. We're just not even weeks, but just days away to our new year begins. And during Elul, we do something called Cheshbon HaNefesh, which means the introspection of our soul. We don't only look outward, but most importantly, we look inward. And there is no better conversation than what we are going to have tonight, not only to demonstrate the idea of teshuvah, which is usually known as repentance, but I like to say move to yourself, but also cheshbon hanefesh, introspection, judgment, and just the love of humanity for each other. And so if you're joining us, whether it's on our webinar or Facebook or YouTube, no pun intended, you're in for a treat. And if we were with Isaac and Carlos, we would probably have gotten a treat as well. But you're in for a spiritual treat because the lesson and story that you're about to hear is the story of what we need to focus on during this high holiday season. And so I'm going to begin with the brief bio of Isaac Yosef. Carlos is even briefer, and you'll understand that in a moment. And then we'll have a conversation, and we'll have a chance for Q&A. Even during social media, you can write it in the chat, and it'll be gleaned so we can also ask those questions. So first, for our guest, Isaac, who's in San Francisco, entrepreneur, visionary, and business owner. Isaac established Frena Bakery, I believe the only kosher bakery in San Francisco, downtown. Now it has a sister restaurant, Hummus Bodega, with a goal in mind. His primary place of residence being in San Francisco, he's a foodie. There was a void of authentic Israeli-style food to be made. He did it, but he had one condition. Of course, the food would be good, but the business be established not only as kosher according to the rabbis, but also, as we say, hechsher tzedek, ethically kosher, the way the food is handled and the way that the entire business is run. And the story is, when he was looking for workers, he found a location, he created the restaurant, and one Sunday afternoon walked an ex-convict from jail who would soon become not only a long-standing and valuable employee, but would create the foundation of what Isaac's business stands on. Isaac went on to hire over 40 ex-convicts, lifers as we call them, and his amazing work stemmed from this to bring back to the community the teaching of our sages that everybody deserves a second chance. Today, Isaac has the opportunities to speak in front of audiences. He's been written about in different publications, Jewish and not, and also on different podcasts around the world. And Carlos is one of those workers who, as I was told his bio was, I'm just a guy that walked into a bakery looking for a job. Isaac and Carlos, it is so wonderful to have you as part of our Sinai Temple community as we prepare for the high holidays this evening. So I'm just going to share one word of Torah and then we're going to get right into it. But I was thinking about all the different references of bread within our tradition. The first one comes from the Torah just a couple of weeks ago, Ki al kol motza pi Adonai yichyeh ha'adam, that human being, humanity cannot live on bread alone. And when you think about that, you think, we have challah on our table tomorrow night. We'll put 2 loaves of challah representing the bread that stood in the temple times, the lechem panim. There was always 2 loaves of bread. But do you ever think about who made your challah and what went into that? The ethics, the people, the stories behind it that allow us to celebrate Shabbat and holidays. And last but not least, the bread. Actually, I'm going to hold that off because Carlos is going to talk about that as well. So Isaac, we're going to start with you. You're from Israel. You come to America, I think maybe a decade ago or so. Why do you decide to start a kosher bakery in the middle of San Francisco when there really aren't any? It's not LA, it's not New York, it's San Francisco. What's the inspiration?
Well, first of all, I thought I'm going to be rich, but it didn't happen yet. And so, no, basically, there is just, we're in San Francisco. So maybe I can call it one of the top 5 cities in the US. Touristic or, metropolitan. And there is nothing to eat here if you want to eat kosher or if you want just some Jewish or Israeli food. And it was always shocking to everybody how it's possible nothing is going on. And we decided to stop talking and, remove our sleeves and start doing something about it. When we did the first time we did something is we did a pop-up in Hanukkah. So basically in Hanukkah it was Hanukkah 2016. No, 2000. We went to a bakery we knew, and we basically just bought some dough from him, and we started doing donuts in the driveway outside. We just brought fryers, and we just started frying donuts. We put one post on Facebook, and it went viral, over the roof. We couldn't believe we were going to make so much. It was a very difficult 8 days, but the look on people's eyes. I remember when we gave them the donuts, the eyes were shining. They were so happy, and it was just so fulfilling. And then we said we have to open something for the community, for the Jewish community. We have to see these eyes every day.
So you talked about the kashrut, right? Okay, it's kosher according to the rabbis, right? You do all the halachic Jewish law aspects, but then what made you bring in the ethical aspect that said, if we're going to run this business, it also has to be kosher, how we run the business?
So I'm about tshuva for, I would say, 5 years already. I wasn't a kosher. I wasn't kosher in everything before. And how do you know, what's kosher, what's not? You have to basically learn what God's demands are for kosher. What he's referring to kosher, not what we refer to kosher. And once you understand that, if the fact you have a kosher restaurant, but you steal money from your workers, you don't pay them enough or in time, or you cheat your clients, you say something else and you put something cheaper, or it can be million things, then it's not really kosher. Kosher cannot be just the certification. Certification doesn't mean anything. There are many places with certification that are not. You go to eat there and you think it's kosher and it's not really kosher. Mm-hmm. I tell all the employees that come to work, I tell them, because it's very hard for them to understand what's kosher. Kosher, separate oven. They look at me, and the first time they come, like I'm crazy. What do you mean? I can't have meat in separate sinks? What's going on here? And I tell them, listen, I don't care what you think. We promised the client it's kosher, it's going to be kosher. If you promise the client it's vegan, it's going to be vegan, right? I said yes. And then they understand, okay, we need to make sure it's kosher.
So let's go to the employees then. Who you didn't expect Carlos to walk through the door. Who were the original employees? And then we're going to go to Carlos and start from his origins and then see how he ended up in the bakery. Who were the original workers after the Sufganiyot, either disaster or miracle?
So we had a very hard time to find workers, good workers. especially because the bakery is a very, very, like you said a few minutes ago. Think how this challah arrived to my table. Somebody had to work a night shift for it to come to my table, and fresh. And the bakery is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, possibly work to do. Very hard on the body, and it was very hard for us to find. We used to work, basically me and my partners, my two other partners, and we had a few employees, some Israelis, some locals, Americans, 16, 18 hour shifts, and regular people couldn't take it. They would just, more than 18 hours, nobody could take it. And then we had a miracle happening. Carlos walked in.
So let's go to Carlos. Carlos, before you got to the bakery, maybe just describe a little of your upbringing and your life before you walked into bakery.
I was born in Bakersfield, California, perennial most illiterate city in the nation. That's where I was born. I grew up it was kind of like a rough thing. Father killed himself when I was young, had cancer, just went through a lot of stuff, homeless. Things were really crazy, and ended up in prison for a murder during a robbery. I was an accessory to that. Got a life sentence. Went in there. I always had like a deep belief in God, Christian. Never really, it was more of a fairy tale. It wasn't really real. It was just something I kind of believed in. I became very studious, learning things. Learned a lot of stuff. Learned Hebrew as much as I could from the Old Testament, Koine Greek, learned a few languages. One day miracle happens. I saved this correctional guard's life, thought I could have got in trouble with that for my people, but they didn't look down on it. That's what got me out of prison. Never knew why I was learning Hebrew, but I always had a fascination with, like our God, like who is this being, and like what are the people? You hear about the Jews, you look at the Arabs, and I'm looking at all of these different things because I believe genuinely in my heart we came from 8 people off of a boat in a global catastrophe. So it's something that was very important to me. And I walk into that bakery one day, and things have been very bizarre, like the rest of my life ever since.
So was that just happen? Did that just happen to be on your path? Were you meaning to go to that bakery? Were you taking the wrong?
No, I just happened to hit a halfway house after doing this life sentence, and there's an Israeli bakery right down the road, and this girl tells me, "Yeah, that's where I work." And I was like, "Do they speak Hebrew?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, let me go check it out." And my last name on my mom's side is Kolaz, and that means challah in Polish. So I wanted to see what challah bread was. I never challah. What is this? And I went in there and I asked him, "Hey, Yaniv, who Isaac and him are together on this." He's like, "Yeah, we have challah." He brings me out a challah. I see it. It's a big piece of bread, and I'm kind of like, "Whoa, this is challah." And I go up to the Katya, who is Isaac's wife. She's there, and she's like, I'm telling her, "Oh yeah, I've always wanted to be a baker, blah blah blah." And she's like, "Do you want a job?" And I was like, my exact words, "Yeah, F it," So Isaac comes out and he's like, "What do you want?" Just like that. "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want a job, but first let me tell you about myself." And I told him everything up front. I just got out of prison after 23 years 3 days ago for a murder of an innocent man. Never had a job, but I'm educated. I will work hard. I'm a beast when I work, and I think I could do some good things. And he's like, "I hire you Sunday." Just like that. Yeah. And I would like to say something about, I want to say something. I just want to bring him into remembrance. Pablo Ramirez, he was one of the guys that worked there. He was a really famous skateboarder out of San Francisco that did bombing, and he actually died in a tragic accident on a skateboard. To all the guys who worked there, man, much love. If you got through that bakery, you are much more prepared for life. It's like what Isaac said, it is the hardest job. I've cut concrete. I grew up on a farm. Nothing holds a candle to the bakery. High demand, hard.
Isaac, Carlos walks in, he tells you up front his life story, and you say, "Okay, yesterday when we spoke, you spoke about judgment. I want you to get into the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Teshuvah mood, and Was there a judgment at first? Were you in such in desperate need that you're going to take a lifer? What went through your mind, and when did you realize I made the right decision, while everybody else in the world probably would not make that decision?
So when he, I saw that when I started talking to him, I'm talking to a very intelligent person right away. So the fact he was looking for a job, not the highest pay, right? Almost minimum wage in a bakery, looked kind of weird to me. And I said, it's weird when somebody is very smart wants to work for a minimum wage. So something is hiding here. So I was not so open. But then the second he told me he was in prison, he got out, I said, this is perfect. I wanted to hire him even more. And the reason being is because I looked at him and I knew if I give him a chance to prove himself, he will. And if I trust him, he will not disappoint me, and he will earn my trust. And he did. And I knew that it doesn't matter what he did. He was so young. So many times we judge so many people, we judge all the time. We basically judge 24/7. We just don't even notice that. How they look, how they talk, how they breathe, how they stand in line, what they're buying, what do they have in their cart. We judge nonstop, but we just have to change. We can't stop judging. The idea is just to change, to always judge positive, to the positive side. Somebody cut you off online. Hey, he didn't see the line. He didn't notice. Don't think, oh, look at this. Who do they think they are? They're cutting us online. Somebody cut you in the road. Maybe his wife is in labor and he's in rush. You never know. Always judge with a favor. And I knew that if I give Carlos a chance, first of all, I knew that if I won't give him a chance, it's going to be very hard for him to find somebody else that will give him the chance. And I just wanted to be, I remember after we left, I told Yaniv, my partner, Yaniv, I got a very good guy for you to come help us in the kitchen. And I was.
And it was 3 days after he left prison. What was the change that you saw first? We'll ask you, Isaac, first, and then we'll ask Carlos what he saw in himself. But first, what was the change that you did see over the time of Carlos working with you that he made based on the environment that you put him in?
Well, Carlos is kind of different than the other. Carlos is a very social person, and he kind of, even when he's in shock from something, you don't really see that he's in shock or something. So the only thing maybe he got self-confidence. That's the only thing I would say he got, because he was acting like he was out like he was never in prison.
Wow.
Until you hear his stories and stuff, it's a different story. But there's maybe self-confidence, and he knew that he can get things done.
And Carlos, what about you? What did you see in yourself 3 days out that was different 3 years out?
Well, it's 4 years now. It's a very complex answer. And I can say that just a lot of what you said earlier before we got online, like trying to look into myself, I feel like I'm back in prison. Boys, behave. It's in my body. I feel like this thing, and I can just tell you, having Isaac and Yaniv, boys, go to bed. It's something that, like, having them around, because when I tell you it's in my body, the things that I experienced in there and what I see kind of like happening now, post-corona type situation, having them to kind of like give me advice sometimes, and listening to what they say about certain things. They tell me things that I hear like from the Bible, that I heard from Jesus, like this is how you should be. And it's like I'm being spoken to by him through them sometimes. And it brings me back, because I am a truly damaged human being. And when you have people around you like that, that tell you those certain things like that, it's like it's very necessary. So that's something for me that's changing all the time, is constantly checking myself, everything, what I do, what I think, and having people like them around for me has been an invaluable blessing, to say the least.
Beautiful. So
very
if you
complex answer.
Yeah, no, if you are just joining either on Facebook or YouTube or on the Zoom webinar, please, you can write your questions in the chat for Isaac and or Carlos, and we'll be able to ask them so we can make it a little more interactive. Right before, we were also speaking about the ceremony that we do on the High Holy Days. In between, we go to a body of water, tashlich, where we in fact take bread and we cast it away. Carlos, this question's for you first. We cast away our sins so like we've never done them, right? But you said, right, what you've seen, what we've all seen, it's always with us. It never leaves us. So how do you balance moving on from what you experienced and what you did with this new life, right? When you meet, like when you went in the bakery, you're like, Isaac, this is my life, right? You probably don't do that with everybody you meet on the street. When do you bring that part of your life into your life now? And when do you sort of separate them? And I'm asking that for our own selves, that we've got to this high holiday, that we experienced these last 18 months of just insanity, right? When do you move on and when do you bring your life with you and move forward with it?
Another complex answer, things that I think upon a lot. And the best thing I can tell you is this, that when I went into prison as a 16-year-old, you have to come to terms with you're never going to get out. This was my belief. I'm never going to get out. So you have to put that, in the Bible, it talks about killing the old man, putting that old man to death to become something new. And in prison, I had to do that. I had to kill that kid that I was and become, I had to create something that could survive in this environment that was different, that was not who I truly was. And something bizarre used to happen to me that I didn't really know what it was. And it used to be, it's a clinical thing that they actually have in the DMS. And it's called moments of clarity. And this is going to circle back to answer your question really nicely. Every so often, I became this new person and I put that old child to death, a 16-year-old. I had to kill that so I could survive. But every so often, it would happen like when I would be at count time, sitting on my bunk. All of a sudden, it would feel like the walls were closing in on me. It's something like deja vu I could compare it to, but it was absolute like terror and scary. And I was like, what I realize now, it was a moment of clarity. It was like I was waking up as that 16-year-old, realizing like, this is real. This is real. This is not fake. You're dealing with the consequences of what you've done. And so to tell you what's happened out here, I'm trying to kill that prisoner I was, but I find myself as I was trying to wake up, like I'm back in prison suddenly. And I don't know the answer to this. I can just tell you that what I feel in my body and the things that are going on, like, it's very disturbing. So I don't know the answer. I don't, when we talk about tshuva, repentance and stuff like that, I just have one hope, and it's my God. I believe in, for me, the casting away of sins has to be done in Jesus. That's all I have for me. And I hope he talks about you people being the people of God, and that you guys we're going to be with you one day. And that's my hope, like that there's something better, because all I lived in prison was racism, battles and ugliness. And it was just ugly. It was freaking ugly, to say the least. And so when I find myself feeling like that again out here, like it gives me bodily shakes, and I don't like it. I don't know what the solutions are. I can just tell you that like love covers a multitude of sins. And I've experienced that from a lot of people, different people who I definitely love, and I would do many things for them. And that's the best answer I can give you. It's a nightmare right now, for me at least. And I have hope, and my hope for me is my God, Jesus. And I just hope that anything bad I've ever done is me. Anything good that I've ever done, I've done because of him and the things that I've learned. And I understand it a lot more looking at the lives of the people at that bakery.
There's a blessing.
It's tremendous, a blessing.
Now there's a blessing that we say every morning, and it's Matir Asurim, that we thank God for freeing the prisoners. And we take that not literally, but in this case, the literal version. So Isaac, you have Carlos, but 40 others employees, just like Carlos. What do? Do you say, Carlos, go bring your friends, or how does that process work? How did that? And then we have a question from our audience as well.
Well, so Carlos, after a few weeks working, he's told me that he have another friend is coming out from prison. That he was also a lifer, and if you can bring him for interview. I said, yes, of course, bring him over. And he was a great guy. We hired him right away. And then another one came, another friend. And then, you just saw it was a great combination, because first of all, it changed we changed many minds, many ways, we changed many people thoughts about Jews. People just hate Jews because they heard stories. Maybe they never even met a Jew. They never heard a Jew or Israeli. So we changed a lot of people's perspective on Judaism, which was amazing. And, I said one thing that I learned from them, from all the prisoners, most of the prisoners, is that they were always happy. They were out. They were appreciating the fact they're out. They were happy to work. They came to work with a smile all the time. They never want to leave. They want always to stay and help. They were helping. They all had a big heart. And they were appreciating the fact that they're alive and they're out. And it's something we need to learn from, because we don't appreciate it as much. Most of the day, we are grumpy. And for what? Because my food is cold, or I'm a little thirsty. This is not perspective. So their positivity and their happiness really affected also in the bakery, and us too.
So interesting that you said you learned from them when you expect actually they should learn from you. Carlos, somebody has asked, has your time in the bakery affected your relationship with your family? And what does that look like now?
Oh, yeah, has it? Yeah, absolutely. They all want me to sometimes cook stuff for them. I mean, my time at the bakery, the bakery, everybody in my family knows the bakery. Everybody's tried it. They all love it. You know what I mean? And some of the people in my family are not easy to please. Let's just say that. But the food is amazing. Yeah, and they're appreciative. Like, people in my family, they genuinely look at them as good, loving people. Like, you could ask my wife and she'll say that. And I want to say something. I heard Isaac say something about, like Jews. I was one of those people. I read a lot of stuff. I've read Mein Kampf. I've read Martin Luther's Jews and Their Lives. I've read so much stuff across the spectrum. And your mind can get polluted by stuff. So I don't know. People can say this about this people and this people. I don't know. I know Isaac. I know that when I needed a job, he fed me. I know what he is. And if he's a representation of those people, that's a good people. If this is what he came from, this is a guy who has love in his heart. I've seen him help homeless people. Nobody watching him do it. I see it. I see he follows his rules on his Sabbath. I never got a text on Saturday. Never got a call. Never seen him working. I've seen all of the rules that he follows. I can just tell you, he lives. What he says, he does. And when he's not a perfect man, but he has love in his heart. And I've seen him do it to the lowest, to the dudes literally slamming heroin on the side of his building, helping them. So it's one thing, you could say something about these people, but I don't know what you've done. I've seen what he's done. Wow. I know what he's not just for me, but for people at the bottom in a gutter, literally with feces and stuff all over them. So if a man will do that for a person like that, because that guy has the spark of God in him, I don't think I can hear what you're saying about this right now. So I just wanted to touch on that.
No, I love that. I love that. And then Isaac, when did you realize, or did they come to you in terms of making the story really public? Our program director, Rebecca Small, actually heard both of you on a podcast, and she said, I got to reach out to them. And she called, she's like, oh my gosh, they just answered my call like it's nothing. When did you realize that you both had a story to share, and that's why we're here tonight? what was that path towards really making this story public for us to begin changing ourselves?
So first of all, it's all Carlos. Carlos knows the production team of the Ear Hustle, the podcast, and he wanted to return a favor to us. That he have to return something to the bakery and help us. And he spoke with them about us, and he told them everything we did, and they just say, "Great, let's make a show." I never expected it to be public. Never planned it to be advertised. Just staying low under the radar, and it's all a surprise, a miracle, and it's a big merit. We are very lucky. I told Carlos too. Carlos always thinks that he's a bad person, and I told him that if God gave you the merit to sanctify His name, because literally I think a few hundreds of thousands of people saw all those articles we had, and I said, if God thought you're a bad person, He would never give you this merit to advertise His name and to advertise the Jews' name in such a good light. So you should be happy and know that you are in God's side.
We have another question from our audience here. Is there a network in San Francisco? Actually, I was going to ask the same thing. Thank you, Maureen. Is there a network in San Francisco with other businesses that support ex-convicts, Delancey Street, Rubicon, etc.? I was going to ask the same thing. Are you a model for others that can do the same thing that you have done?
So, a model, yeah, of course we're a model, but not a model, we're an example. We don't have a model. I don't work directly with the government or with the prison system. They don't send anybody to us. I just, as a business owner, you provide people with a job, and if one of the biggest parts of tshuva, of tshuva, is do tzedakah, is to donate, and not just give money, but give somebody a job is a much higher level than just give money, because you help him to make his own money without humiliating himself and ask for money, beg for money. So the fact that I can give people jobs and they can sustain and buy a car and rent a house and move on and save money, that was a big reward for us. It was a merit. This also is a merit that we got. We are lucky that we did it, and so we just as an example. I want to show regular business owners, not big companies only. Any store in the street, private owned, small businesses, medium businesses, that they don't need to be afraid, and they can just hire. They can hire ex-prisoners. I even hired homeless people. We had a guy. He was living in his car, and we hired him. And then I got him a hotel room for a couple of weeks until he had made money and he can rent an hotel room. And he got out from the street.
How did you find him, or how did he find you? Carlos walked in. Now it sounds like you go find others.
No, he also came. He came in too. He was very shy, and you can see that he's a very nice guy. And he was just unfortunate. He wasn't on drugs or anything like that. And I said, yeah, why not? If God put me in a position to help, I need to take advantage of it, because it's always better to be in the side of helping than in the side of needing for help.
Pirkei Avot, they say mitzvah goreret mitzvah, that one mitzvah and one good deed leads to another good deed. And you mentioned tzedakah, the ladder, that right? It's not just number one. The bottom of the ladder is forcing somebody to give. The top of the ladder, as you said, is allowing somebody to sustain themselves. On that note, though, Carlos, I want you to tell people that you're not working in the bakery now, but tell them what you're doing, which is also amazing when you told me.
Oh yeah, I started a carpet cleaning business. It's a little rough right now. I just transferred location, so it's always, if history is the best predictor of the future, I'm in for like 8 months of like horrid trials of trying to get jobs. I had a good setup in San Francisco, unfortunately I had to abandon that, but I'll rebuild it, I do good work. I don't sell people things they don't need, and I do the right thing in my business, and I try to do that like I don't try, I do it consistently. I'll take a loss rather than getting a bad rating. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I also want to bring up a text from Maimonides, Rambam, when he speaks about what we're going to be doing on the High Holy Days as well. That they're tzaddikim, the righteous, but he really couldn't find so many. And the Risha'im, the wicked, and he also couldn't find any. But the Beinonim, these people in the middle. And he said, in order to tip the scale, it's not this gigantic act, but in fact, it's like this small act. Isaac, when you see people like now Carlos owning their own businesses, do you see yourself raising a Beinonim to a tzaddik? What does that feel like to you?
It just, yeah, I mean, it just makes me proud that I had a chance to have somebody, continue, move on, and find a better place, and just to grow and not to come back to where he was, to really help him with his tshuva. Because to do tshuva, you need a system. You can't just in one day change everything and you think everything will be fine. It's a system. It's a process. You need rabbis to help you. You need community. You need family. You need people to help you. And it's the same with getting out of prison. You need people around you to help you and to support you. Any difficult thing in life, basically.
So first, a question for Isaac from one of our participants in Zoom, and then a question for Carlos. The trust factor, Isaac, right? Okay, you trusted this guy who walks in 3 days after being a lifer, right? It reminds me sort of the Sulam of Yaakov, of Jacob's ladder, that it's not always up. There's some ladders, some rungs of the ladder that go down. Were those moments where you perhaps lost trust and maybe thought, I didn't make the right decision, but I got back on track? Was it up and down, or was it just always up?
Tagid lo haemet.
What's that?
No, I told him, tell him the truth.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I will. The truth is that I had more problems and issues with people not from prison that are, stealing money or taking things or show unfaithful actions, because people that came out from prison, people that sinned and got caught, and they want to repent. They have something to prove. They want to prove to you that they are changed, and they don't want to come back there. They don't want to come, especially lifers. They don't want to go back to prison. And I knew it. I knew that they just finished 25 years. Why would the guy do something stupid and come back there? They would never do it. And that's why I had a trust in them that they really want to change their life. And I believe that they really want to do tshuva and continue moving on. And I was right.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah,
because we did have
to say.
we did have a couple of people that did some things that weren't so kosher, and when they did it, I remember speaking to one of them like, dude, what you did, I bet my life on it. You could have just asked, and it would have been freely given and more. Like, what were you thinking? Like, it was astounding. And the bakery is rich. It's life. It has everything, drama, this, that. It has everything in it. But there was always like, I feel, I can't speak for all of the guys, but it was very rich. And I still have a lot of communications with some of the people there. And it's just like, not just that work there, that formerly worked there, some friends, yeah, and there were just times where like, they knew they had messed up because they know that they had hurt somebody that was righteous, and that what they did would have been freely given and more. Like embarrassing, unnecessary.
Somebody mentioned Father Greg Boyle here in Los Angeles. I'm not sure if are you familiar with him, Isaac? Father Greg Boyle?
Who?
Father Greg Boyle from the Homeboy Industries, very well known here in LA. Who also assists in helping the formerly incarcerated. That might be an interesting connection that we could make. That, as you said, you're just an example, but you're really actually a model. Carlos, 3 days. I keep mentioning this 3 days out. To me, that's the most fascinating thing. It's not like you did a recovery program for a year. 3 days. if you didn't walk in that bakery, right? What was your trajectory at that moment? You said you were walking to a halfway house.
I can just say this. I never thought I was going to get out. I wasn't prepared to get out. Like it had always been like this fantasy, like like on a flute. I had my dreams crushed 6 months before the CO thing happening. And I had completely given up all hope way before the time where I thought I could get out. So had I not had that, I've had struggles since I've been out. So it's like what I tell people, if I didn't believe in a God, like a lot of people think, oh yeah, Christianity or God is for weak people. Like, you better be thankful that somebody like me believes in God, because it restrains my actions.
Wow.
If I think that you're an animal, I wear animals on my feet. I eat them. You better have the image of God on you, because my duty is to exploit you if not. And it's a struggle. It's a daily battle, knowing and seeing the things that I've seen, not to think like that. And it's only because of God. The things that I've experienced, how I see Jesus, that I don't look at people like animals. And so bearing that in mind, like, had I not met them and I had not got to see their lives and the way that they kind of display things, I really got a great understanding of Jesus through them. How then they don't believe in it. They don't, it's not like for them, but I can see in them, he was a Jew. All of the things that I read were Jews that wrote these books. So I'm reading Jewish thought constantly, although it would be in Greek. So when I got to see the life, it's like, whoa. So it's huge for me, because I'm a Christian. A lot of the people that I've been taught by are Christian. We didn't live that life. And when I hear certain things said, the way that they perform things, the way that they believe, it's, whoa, I know what you're talking about right now. And I got to see it in practice.
And we mentioned yesterday that thought within our own tradition of B'Tselem Elohim, which is in the image of God, is basically the first thing that the Torah tells us, that the human being, man and woman, were made in the image of God. And that's why when we, whatever, and Isaac, you said this before, obviously, right? Prisoner, not prisoner, man, woman, black, white, homeless, doesn't matter, B'Tselem Elohim. And that, I think, is actually one of the hardest things to do, right? As you said, Isaac, before, we judge people and ourselves 24 hours a day, right? But can we step back and actually see that B'Tselem Elohim moment? It's hard, but you both, I don't want to say you both have done it in an extreme way, you've done it in a real way, right? You're not doing it by posting on social media. You're doing it in your actually own lives.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, please.
Please, Rabbi? Because when I tell you, there's a saying, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And I genuinely believe that Isaac doesn't know all of the things that he's done. He doesn't really understand all of the things that he's done. And people haven't seen all the good works. I can speak on it, you know what I mean? But God will give him his glory. I don't believe for works, but the things that he's done for the people of God. The love. Nothing is bigger than love. For me, at least, and that's how I understand the commandment. Love one another as I've loved you. And I've seen that there's no bigger commandment than that. And so when I see what he's done, and it's not for a pretense out there doing the prayers for everybody. I walk down into the basement, and he's got his thing over his head with the Torah out, or his book, and he's doing it there. But that's, to me, it's a ritual. When I see what he does in secret with people, what he does, like, whoa, it speaks volumes to him and credit, and to other people that I've seen that are around him, to some of them Israelis and those Jews over there that are just like, they're doing what they can. And there's a lot of other people. I have Palestinian, Jordanian friends. I see this in them too. And it gives me a great understanding. I don't know all the complexities of the world. I know a lot, but I don't know them all to be making. I have stances that I shouldn't have, but I just see this. I see this guy in the love. And it was never for a pretense. Isaac is not a person that ate off of the carcass. And when the lady asked the question about, I don't want to mention the programs, to me, I think of it as the rehabilitative industrial complex. Like he said, I don't take money from the government. I don't have this funding. He did it out of his own pocket, from his own heart. And nobody's seen it. Nobody would have ever known what he's done. Nobody. He does it because he doesn't eat off of the death and destruction. He's trying to bring back to life the things that were dead, the prisoner, the people in the streets. He's not an eagle eating the carcass.
So I have one last question, and then if there's no other questions, then we'll wrap up. My last question is this. On Yom Kippur, we take our fist and we go like this, and Ashamnu Bagadnu, that means that we sinned. And in fact, it doesn't say we sin individually, but rather it's all in the plural, right? It's not that I did this and I did this and I did this, but in fact, it's we. And, you know, when we come to the synagogue, we sort of laugh at it like, ha ha ha, we were, you know, we quarreled, we rebelled, we did this, right? But it's we. How do you see, we're going to start on the negative and then go to the positive, right? When we do a confessional and say, we did this, right? How do you see individuals working together to improve our actions as a whole to make this world just a little bit better tomorrow, as opposed to just looking at ourselves? How do the two eyes fit together as a we, as a community? So Carlos, maybe you can say, as you told me yesterday, you didn't really come from a big family, and here in the bakery you found community, right? How do you see it? How do you see community now as opposed to when you left prison first?
So the community that I've seen in prison, like I'm Mexican, and Mexican people are very proud, brave people. And it was I had experienced a lot of love from my Mexican people in there. And blood was shed, and I had like a real sense of camaraderie with them. And out here, you know, I want to do better things. I want to be better. I want to do good things. You know, I don't want to think on the things that we used to think. It's constantly getting poured back into me now as I watch media and I see certain things happening. Looking at, like I told you, for me, looking at you as the image of God, seeing that spark. I can't love God if I'm not loving you. And that's a constant battle. That's a constant battle to recognize that the man that I think about killing is actually in the image of God. You're going to have to give an answer for that. And that should make people's knees tremble, literally tremble, because I've fallen into the hands of man on a life sentence and possibly up to death. And it was tolerable. To think about the judgment of God is not something I look forward to. I have one hope. And so looking at that spark in man, I have to constantly think on that. And because when you get to an animal state where you're in prison and we've seen things around the world, how things can go bad. And we're talking about either the little things. Those little things add up. Trying to, you know, do these little things for people, loving people, actually trying to genuinely do it. I try with everything I have. It's a battle. I don't have magic in my heart that happens. I never got touched by Jesus and, oh man, I feel this thing. It's a battle. I listen to him. I see you, because what he said, love one another as I love you. And that's God. I can't love God if I don't love you. It's impossible.
And
it's
Isaac,
impossible.
The Kehila Kedosha, a sacred community, when did you realize that you didn't just have a kosher bakery, but you really had a holy place there in Frena, and now here in our community as well?
Well, first of all, I think when you do something from the heart, then, like you said, mitzvah, direct the mitzvah is just, it's a snowball. We didn't just open the Frena. We opened a Jewish corridor in downtown San Francisco. We opened 2 weeks before. We opened the same time the bakery opened the first Chabad or synagogue in downtown in San Francisco. And we opened. There's a friend of us opened recently a kosher shawarma place right next to us too. So we wanted to just, you know, really, and we are in the worst street in San Francisco. We are literally in a place of complete darkness. And homeless people. And everybody that comes, the first question they ask is, why you guys open here? And obviously it was also cheap rent, but that's what God wants. He wanted us to be the light over there and give homeless food every time they come to the bakery, because we stopped walking there, we realized they kept coming, and we said we can't shoot them out, we can't fight with them, we can't say no, because we have bread, you know, we give them a piece of bread. So that's it. Every homeless that's going to come here is going to get, and he wants food, will get food. Doesn't matter what time, doesn't matter what day, as long as we open, he's gonna get food. So, what you said, I never thought of what you said right now. You said about in the confession, we said in plural. We're saying in plural that we sinned, and not. It's actually the first time I think about it, and it's pretty amazing. It's because we think that we are. Many of us think that we are nothing, and who am I? But we need to understand that in the real world, which is obviously not this world, in the next world, the real world, in the heavens, nobody cares how do I look. Nobody cares how much money I have. Nobody cares. It's not important what house or what car I have, and nobody cares where I work. The only thing that's important is how many merits, how many good deeds I've done, and if I listen to God in this life. If I can have a nice house, why not? I can have a nice car, but it's not the main goal. The main goal is to understand that I am a part of something big. I'm not just a nothing. I'm a part of something huge, and I have a chance, like you said, with one small deed to completely change the world, a judgment from bad to good, and everybody can do it. And that's the bottom line. This is why we live. That's why we're here. This is our life purpose, and the rest is just a game.
Oh, I thought the rest is sprinkles on the cake. I'm going to conclude with a story that I shared with you just before, but with our congregation community tonight. It's by the Chafetz Chaim, a very well-known Hasidic rabbi. And he said, originally I set out to change the world, but I failed. So I decided to basically scale back my efforts, and I was only going to influence my community, but he failed there too. And then he went to just his hometown and he had no success. And then I gave all my efforts, he said, to changing my own family, but I failed as well. But finally, I decided to change myself. And that's how I had such an impact on the entire world. Carlos and Isaac, I think you both live out the words of the Chafetz Chaim. You've given us a charge tonight, and there's a beautiful line in the prophet Zechariah. It says that we are a asirei tikva. It says that we are all prisoners, but asirei tikva. And Carlos, you mentioned this tonight, that we are prisoners of hope. And I hope that that's the message that everybody got this evening, wherever you're watching from. And if you are in San Francisco, go to the bakery for your challah tomorrow. If you are going to San Francisco, please go to Frena Bakery, a little plug. We are just honored that you could be here this evening virtually, and one day, God willing, soon with us as well. So we want to wish everybody a Shana Tova, a happy and healthy and really a safe new year, and also a Gemar Chatima Tova, that we should all be written for the book of life this year. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.